Welcome back. This is Mohamed from Egypt in 5 minutes. And today is about Alexander the Great and Egypt. Alexander the Great stayed in Egypt for 1 year. And in 1 year he did a lot. Alexander the Great and Egypt. We go! Few days ago, me and some of my friends were in Luxor Temple. And while we are reading the names of the kings who built the temple, there was a wonderful name that we cannot forget, the name of Alexander the Great. And it is true, Alexander the Great came to Egypt and he stayed in Egypt for 1 year. And then before he left, he put his name in more than one place. The name of Alexander the Great was found in the famous Luxor Temple. We found it also in the famous Karnak Temple, which is the largest temple ever built by the ancient Egyptians. We found it also in a very famous island in Aswan city, which is a little bit far from Luxor. That means, on purpose, Alexander the Great, who stayed only 1 year in Egypt, wanted to put his name almost everywhere in the country. And this is because he wanted to be apart from the Egyptian civilization. I myself don't think that Alexander went to all of these places. He did not have enough time to do that. But maybe he sent people to write his name as an Egyptian pharaoh. This is because, as I told you before, you can be a great commander outside of Egypt for any other country. But when you are the king in Egypt, the Egyptians worship you like a god, especially after you die. And that means you become a legendary for the whole Egyptians. And it is the destiny of Egypt that Alexander the Great, like a lot of other big names, were connected to the Egyptian civilization. I mean, if you can go back by your memory more than 2,000 years ago, you cannot imagine that Alexander the Great came to Egypt, stayed in Egypt, and he put his name. And it's more than that. Alexander the Great, who's not Egyptian, of course, Greek or Macedonian, was buried in Egypt. And this is what I want to tell you. The story started when Alexander stayed for 1 year, and then he left to conquer other countries. And when he's very close from India to conquer this country, the army of Alexander were kind of tired. And they were talking to Alexander that is more than enough, so they decided to go home. On the way back, Alexander and his army stayed in another country, Iraq, Baghdad. And a few days later, he got sick. And then later also, he's about to die. So the young commander, the famous one, Alexander the Great, is about to die. He left behind him a very big empire. So many countries he was able to conquer and occupy in the same time. And everybody thought that when Alexander the Great will die, the generals of the army will fight each other in order to find only one king after Alexander. But before that, they came to Alexander when he is very sick. And they asked him, Alexander, your empire is very big. Who you want to succeed you? And Alexander gave a very strange answer, very much maybe to encourage his generals to be very strong. He said it should go to the strongest or the fittest. And that is why the generals of Alexander the Great, after his death, decided to share, not to fight. Egypt was taken by a very famous general who loved Alexander the Great very much, called Ptolemy. If you are new to my channel, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe so you can see everything new in the next time. Now Ptolemy, who's a great general, decided to go to meet the body of Alexander. By the way, the body of Alexander stayed almost in Iraq for a few days until the body was about to be smelly. And those people, his people decided to mummify him. So according to history, they invited very good embalmers from more than one country. Some of them came from Egypt. But it said also that Alexander the Great body was mummified in honey, not on the Egyptian style. And then after the mummification, they are on the way to take him back to Macedonia. And then the general he loved, and the man who took Egypt, Ptolemy, as I told you, decided to go to meet Alexander's body. And everybody thought that he came just to say goodbye. But in fact, he hijacked the body and he took it back to Egypt. In history, when you read about this, you will notice that some people said that he was buried in Memphis. But Memphis is very much a city was built by the ancient Egyptians. Very close from Memphis, there is a big, wonderful graveyard. We still have it until today, called Saqqara. In my opinion, Alexander the Great was buried in Saqqara for a few years until they made for him a wonderful, beautiful tomb in Alexandria, the city that Alexander the Great himself founded. And then they moved the body, and then when the body arrived in a big party, in a big celebration, they buried the body of Alexander in Alexandria city. And it became a very famous site after that. But what happened was just like crazy thing. The tomb of Alexander the Great was lost. And however, we know now where it is, and we know almost the location, but the big city of Alexandria was built on the top of all of that. And as I always say, if you want to find the body of Alexander, if you want to find the tomb of Alexander, which was known by Suma or Sima, and we think it was very famous, you have to knock down a big part of the city of Alexandria on the top to find the tomb, and you don't know if you can find it in a very good condition or not. Finally, what I like to say is, Egypt has got the biggest civilization on the planet, and this is because it is the mother of the whole civilizations. But what made it more interesting, that big names of big kings were connected to Egypt, and this is the destiny of these kings and the destiny also of Egypt as a big famous civilization. If you enjoyed the video, please check out the other videos. You will love it.